His cousin is fighting for his life.
No fighters, okay. We're helping you.
The boss shows paramedic Sammy the way on a tricky hill rescue.
Oh, following his footsteps anywhere.
And the patient who's still smiling, despite almost bleeding to death.
It looked like a scene from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre in this garage.
They call horse racing the sport of kings, but for the jockeys that ride the thoroughbreds on the track, there's a lot more at stake than a few quid each way. If you fall off, it's a long way down, and you could be doing 40 miles an hour.
It's a winter's morning in North Yorkshire's racing country, and there's been a serious accident.
I've got a girl who's just fallen off a horse. Yeah. All right, okay, well just keep her where she is. She's hardly breathing, I can hardly get her to breathe.
Helimed 99's crew are on the case. The rider's near an isolated racing stable on the edge of the North York moors.
A female has fallen off a horse and is unconscious at Sheriff Hutton. She may well have fallen onto her head.
Is there any way you can get her mouth open, or is her mouth tightly shut? Or her teeth tightly together? Tightly together. Right, okay. Okay, you're doing really well. I did actually give her mouth to mouth to start with. Alright. Yeah, she's moving her hand now. That's it, Kate. You're alright, darling.
Paramedics Pat and Sammy have been called to incidents like this before.
There can be a very serious incident. It can be anything from minor injuries to very serious spinal and head injuries.
The morning gallop at racing trainer Mick Easterby's stables near York has ended in a life or death struggle. Jockey Kate Bosanquet has fallen from her skittish horse. She owes her life to Oliver, a colleague with first aid skills.
The horse went hanging left-handed, the horse slipped over, so she fell away from the horse, landed on her front, head first, and then so I just turned her over. And then just gave her mouth to mouth, put her head back and gave her mouth to mouth.
Thanks to Oliver, Kate is still alive, but she's in a critical condition. Luckily for her, Helimed 99 has a doctor on board today.
If the patient has a significant head injury or significant other injuries, I'm able to give an anaesthetic, put the patient off to sleep and take control of their airway and breathing. Is anybody else? I don't think so, is there?
Can't see any.
Took a while to get the ambulance so close.
Lovely.
This young lady's made contact with the floor head first. Unconscious, face down. We're going to get you into it warm in 2 minutes, Kate, love. All right.
Kate's in a bad way. Yorkshire has one of the UK's biggest networks of local ambulance stations, and local paramedics reached her quickly.
Stay still, darling.
But Dr. Jez Pinnell knows she could deteriorate at any time.
She's sustained quite a serious head injury, and the signs at the moment that she's got quite a significant injury to her head, either because of the initial fall or because of lack of oxygen. What we're going to do now is to give her an anaesthetic, put her off to sleep, put a breathing tube into her airways, so we get control of her airway and get control of her breathing, and then we're going to fly her into the LGI in Leeds, which is the regional neurosurgical centre.
Half an hour ago, Kate was exercising a racehorse. Now the paramedics are racing to save her life. Her colleagues are in shock.
She wasn't breathing, I couldn't feel the pulse, but she had all that gear on, so I was in a bit of... I was scared.
Wow. This lady's got a head injury and is agitated, so we're preparing to do what's called rapid sequence induction.
What we're going to do, Kate, we're going to put a board underneath your back.
Kate's drifting in and out of consciousness. Putting her to sleep will allow her injured brain to rest and hopefully recover, but all anaesthetics involve a risk. Will Kate make it? Coming up on Helicopter Heroes, can Dr. Jez save Kate's life? Survival means a risky procedure, and this is a ploughed field, not a hospital. In the Peak District, an exhausted walker needs help, and so does paramedic Nick.
You have to backpack me.
And a farmer's prize bull leaves his owner in agony.
If he hadn't have been thrown out, it would have killed him.
Getting married is a happy affair, especially when your family's large and many guests have travelled thousands of miles just to be there. But for one unlucky couple, the journey to the reception ended in a terrible accident.
Yorkshire is one of the busiest motorway networks in the country, and the M62, which carves its way through the Pennines, carries 1 million cars a day. It also has a notorious safety record. Paramedic Paul Bradbury, along with Simon Kavanagh and pilot Paul Curtis, are en route, and they've been here before.
We generally go to the same spot every time, actually. It's that bit where the M62 splits and there's a little farm in the middle of it. Seems to be notorious for road accidents.
The emergency services have responded quickly to this incident. Although only one car is involved, it's a bad one. 2 men, part of a wedding party, have come off the motorway and hit a lamppost with such force they've brought it down. Helimed 99 are needed fast, but first they need somewhere to land. The motorway itself is usually the best option, but not today.
Traffic moving certainly westbound on the motorway from the 12 o'clock see here. It does appear to be traffic moving on the eastbound carriageway as well.
With the traffic still running in both directions, pilot Paul needs somewhere else to land. Someone's back garden is about to become a makeshift helipad. It's not the first time the helicopter has landed in this garden. The paramedics know it's only a short walk to the crash site, with only a few hurdles. The emergency crew already at the scene have got one casualty out of the car. He's still alive, but there's another man still trapped in the wreckage.
Guys, before you move in, can you have a look at him, please? Just check his back on it, sir.
The only way to this patient is through the windscreen.
Hi, sir. Hiya, mate. Hiya. Hiya, what do you call this chap? What's your name? What's your name? Atif. Atif, right.
The firefighter, one of the first to the scene, has been cradling Atif Ali since the accident. Paul now needs his help to get an oxygen mask and an emergency collar onto his patient before he's moved.
Just tell him when I put a collar on his neck.
I'm going to put a collar on your neck, right, so just don't move for him, yeah? Okay?
Chill, please, bro.
Come on,
But Atif is fighting back. It could be fear, shock or panic, or more likely the trauma of a serious head injury.
No. Steve, don't fight us. It's okay. We're helping you.
As the drama unfolds inside the car, on the hard shoulder of the motorway, there's another problem developing. A few minutes ago, all these people were on their way to a family wedding in West Yorkshire, travelling in convoy. Some witnessed the smash, and now more have pulled over.
Boys, come back here. Come on, if you don't need to be here, I need you in the car so I know you're safe and out of the way.
The crowd is getting bigger, and next to the motorway, this is dangerous. There could be another accident. The police decide to clear the scene.
I'm asking you now, sir. Come on.
Back at the car, there's bad news.
He's had a fit, yeah. Well, what looks like a fit. Are we giving any days if I'm ready? No, I can't get in there at all at the minute.
Atif's condition is getting worse. They need to get him out. But how?
My only worry is as soon as we start putting out round him, he's going to start fighting.
We could take this roof. We could take roof off here.
Get roof off if you want. Try and with
take
it.
Roof off, take him straight out.
Yeah, have you got in there for 2 seconds?
I've got him, yeah.
The crew can't risk flying Atif in the helicopter if he's having a fit caused by a head injury. Amazingly, another passerby has stopped who has the answer.
Hi, by the way, I'm Vic Calland. Yeah.
Emergency doctor Vic Calland was driving past the scene. In his car, he has the drugs needed to sedate Atif, making it safe to fly him out.
Stay still, mate.
All this struggling is making it hard for Dr. Calland to give Atif the drugs he needs.
Keep your arms still.
Just talk to him, tell him to calm down. Yeah, go on.
They come to take you out of here, yeah? Relax. Come on, brother, relax.
His cousin, who stayed at the scene, does his best to help calm him down.
Come on, brother, easy. Atif, please talk to me. Come on. Atif, relax, please. No.
Time is getting on, And as Atif continues to fight those trying to help him, Simon has a decision to make. If they are to fly him out, he'll need to get this motorway shut down and land a helicopter in the middle of it. Coming up on Helicopter Heroes, can Helimed 99's crew free their patient
Just try and calm down, that's it.
and prevent a family wedding ending in tragedy? Dr. Jez turns a field into an operating theatre as he sedates a badly injured jockey.
Nobody gonna sing I.O.
And paramedic Darren Axe takes a nostalgic trip down a coal mine where he used to earn a living.
The Pennines are full of stunning landscapes, spectacular waterfalls, rocky outcrops and ancient woodland. Exactly the worst place to try and land one of these.
You think it's east of Bakewell?
Today the Air Ambulance boss Mick Linley is going back to the shop floor, and he's immediately called into action. On a woodland path in the Peak District, Gerard Tumble has collapsed.
He fell unwell and he had a rest and a drink of water. Somebody said he did pass out for a short period, but he's conscious now. He's a terrible colour.
Before settling for a life behind a desk, Mick was a paramedic on the road. He's now in charge of the whole air ambulance operation and thinks there's only one way to find out what life's really like for his paramedics.
I like to fly occasionally, just to keep A, hands-on, and B, to understand the operation. So if we've got any operational difficulties, I can look at that really from an operational perspective.
Whereabouts is it? Hey mate, I've given it a slightly wrong grid reference. It's where it is. I don't think you can get anywhere particularly near it at all, I don't think. It's all in the woods.
Gerard is stuck at the top of a steep hill. Mountain rescue are already on scene, but the helicopter can't land nearby, so that means a long, hard walk for Mick and Sammy.
If we can get the aircraft closer, then clearly we will do, but at the moment it's just a matter of getting to the patient and assessing their condition.
It's clear that a couple of years away from the front line is taking its toll on Mick, and he decides to pull rank.
Just to backpack me. On the other arm. My brave leader, I will follow in his footsteps anywhere. He's very good at the power of delegation.
Gerard's been lucky. One of his walking buddies is a radiographer and he's been monitoring his condition. Mick must now ensure Gerard doesn't deteriorate. This far from hospital, that could be fatal.
He seems fairly stable. It looks like he's probably just overexerted himself because he's been on the way up. And as we found out to our cost, it's a long way up.
It is, and it's a long, steady, very steep hill. And we stopped a couple of times, but it was obviously, he does get a bit out of breath, and he says, that, so we stopped.
I think it's just been too much, really, for him. I don't know. I should come downhill next time. We've just kind of calmed him down. He's not been too concerned either, really. He's taking it all in his stride, so he's fairly comfortable and happy.
But Gerard's luck might be about to run out. He's been on the cold, wet ground for nearly an hour, and the weather's turning.
It's not the cold, it's the sudden onset of the rain now that's going to cause a problem. That in itself, if we get too wet, can cause hypothermia, so we're going to move as fast as we can, really, just in terms of keeping him dry and warm.
Gerard needs to be in hospital, but for once it's not a short walk to the waiting helicopter. Instead, Gerard must endure a frightening journey down the same treacherous and slippery path he walked up. Fortunately, Mountain Rescue has turned out in force with its latest piece of kit, a human wheelbarrow. These guys are very experienced, but this slope is steeper than it looks.
Gerard, would you like to fly with us today?
I'm in your hands.
Well, let's take you for a ride then,
Okay.
When you're looking at things like time-critical incidents such as that, especially things like medical conditions such as a heart attack, it's really a question of how quickly we can get them away from that isolated incident into hospital, and the longer it takes, obviously, the more detrimental impact that'll have on the patient.
From hilltop to hospital in just 5 minutes, Gerard will soon be receiving the vital treatment he needs at Chesterfield Hospital. 6 weeks later, and guess who's back out walking? Since his rescue, Gerard's undergone numerous tests and visits to hospital, but he's still got the doctors baffled.
The consultant said, I'm sorry, we haven't got an explanation of what happened. So they'd like me to have an angiogram in case it might have been a blocked artery. I can't praise them highly enough. So efficient, sensitive, kind, caring, and they knew their job, knew exactly what to do.
Coming up on Helicopter Heroes, there's an accident in a warehouse and a storeman is in danger of losing his foot.
There was actually bags on top of him up to his chest.
And on the motorway, a badly injured driver takes a turn for the worse.
Got breathing. Has he? Yeah.
Back on the gallops in North Yorkshire, jockey Kate Bosanquet is fighting for her life. It took the kiss of life just to restart her breathing, but now only one man, flying Dr. Jez Pinnell, could save her from what could be serious brain damage.
Stable girl Kate was exercising a racehorse when it threw her off. Her head took the full impact of the high-speed fall. A fellow jockey, Oliver Greenall, used his first aid training to save her life. Dr. Jez is putting her to sleep to allow her injured brain to rest.
It's something I do every day in hospital. It's something we don't do that often outside of hospital.
All she's doing is putting a cuff round your arm.
As you can see, she's quite agitated now.
She feels
the
sick.
problem is if she becomes agitated in the helicopter, she vomits, if she develops a problem with her airway, it's going to be very difficult to manage when she's up in the air. So once we've got her off to sleep, she's a lot safer and a lot easier to manage that way.
You've come off your horse and banged your head, all right? We're just going to put you to sleep. Everything we're doing is just to help you. Kate had stopped breathing. Her brain literally only had a few minutes, 3 minutes, before it starts dying. We call it hypoxia or lack of oxygen. Oliver was able to step in, start breathing on her behalf, and that enabled us to continue on the care. If he hadn't have done that, we wouldn't have been able to make a difference.
A cocktail of drugs is prepared to knock Kate out.
That's the morphine. That's the morphine. And I can see them.
All right, it's all right, Kate. Good girl. Better than the air you breathe in now, Kate. Come on, good luck. You're all right, Tricia.
Right, Kate, try not to fight.
What's going on here would normally be happening in an operating theatre, with an anaesthetist and a team of assistants. It's crucial that the paramedics and Dr. Jez pull together to make this work.
On this occasion, having Jez with us that day, it effectively meant that we took the hospital to the patient. She was anaesthetised on scene in the mud.
It does carry a degree of risk. We use the same standards of monitoring and the same equipment as we would do in hospital. So if something was to go wrong, if we weren't able to get the breathing tube down, we have a plan B and a plan C, and everybody in the helicopter crew is they're all trained to deal with those situations should they arise. Microwave pressure off, please, Zoe.
Kate's life is now in the hands of Jez and his team. They're even breathing for her as the anaesthetic allows her to slip back into unconsciousness.
Tape.
Essentially what I've done is I've given her an anaesthetic now, so she's now asleep. She's had some drugs to relax all her muscles. That's enabled me to put a tube into her throat down the windpipe, which does two things. It protects her airway now in case she was to vomit, and it also allows us to ventilate her, to breathe for her, which means we can control her oxygen level and we can control the level of carbon dioxide, which is important if you have a head injury, as we suspect she does.
It's time to get Kate on board the helicopter. When the brain gets thumped as hard as Kate's has been, it can swell and put itself under massive pressure. It gets confused, and some patients lash out. Many even start fighting with the paramedics who are trying to save their life.
But it's because the brain is sending all sorts of messages, and it's their instinct. They don't mean to lash out. It's just their way of trying to, hey, I don't know what's going on, help. They know that they've got a problem, but they're often not fully aware of the situation around them.
They try and get up off the trolley, pull off their oxygen mask, pull off the monitoring. They may try and hit out at people who are restraining them because they think that they're attacking them. So we try not to, if at all possible, transfer those patients by air, because that's obviously it's potentially dangerous for the patient. It's potentially dangerous for everyone in the helicopter.
Kate's now on her way to hospital, but the anaesthetic needs careful and constant monitoring.
We're just maintaining an anaesthetic, making sure she's stable on the way into hospital now. So we've been in communication with Dave at the air desk. We shouldn't be too long. No. I don't know what our ETA is there, Sammy. It's about 10 minutes, I would have thought.
13, 14 minutes.
Right.
This is a dangerous time for Kate, but it's worth the risk. A team of neurosurgeons in Leeds are already waiting for her to arrive.
Because she was just showing some signs that she's just starting to move. Because she's got a head injury, we don't really want her coughing and moving around. That doesn't do the pressure inside her head much good. So we're just giving her something to keep her still, as well as some drugs to keep her asleep and pain-free.
Kate's in safe hands, but Dr. Jez is still worried that her injuries are so severe she might have permanently damaged her brain.
Obviously what we don't know is how significant the injury to her brain is. The worrying thing was that they said when the first people arrived she was face down and not breathing, and it may well have been that she was initially concussed, but then had a period of low oxygen which could cause damage to the brain. But either way, she needs to go and have a scan of her head to see if there's anything going on that the surgeons can operate on.
15 minutes ago, Kate was on the Gallops in North Yorkshire with a potentially fatal head injury, and now she's landing on the rooftop helipad of one of Europe's most advanced hospitals. The helicopter and crew have done their bit, and now Kate's life is in the hands of others. Coming up, can Kate recover from the fall that almost killed her, or will her brain be permanently damaged? And a nasty accident with a power tool leaves a mechanic needing plastic surgery.
Doing a marvellous job.
Paramedics hate motorways. They're dangerous places to work, and the victims of accidents are often trapped. On the M62 in the Pennines, the crew of Helimed 99 have their hands full.
Helimed 99's pilot Paul Curtis turned a garden by the side of the motorway into a makeshift helipad to get the paramedics to the crash.
Latif, just try and calm down, that's it.
On his way to a wedding, Atif Ali has come off the M62. With Atif out of the car, sedated and calm, he's safe to fly to the head injuries unit he so desperately needs. What's needed now is a helicopter.
We're going to have to close the carriageway if we're going to fly him out. We're just going to liaise with the cops for that.
Both carriageways need to be shut, and this is the road linking Manchester to Leeds, one of the busiest roads in the country. But the police don't hang about.
So I think we're pretty much ready to go now.
Okay, mate. The only thing I'd ask is that one of you is in a position where you actually want me to land with your back into the wind, stood there with your arms outstretched, so clearly in my mind I know where I'm going to land and it's safe to do so.
No worries, mate. I'll sort that out for you.
Paul is on the way. The police have the roadblocks in place.
Paul, Simon, the block's on at the minute. It's just taken a while to filter down. It's just beyond the white van. It's about 2 miles away, mate.
Yeah, I've got it visual now. I can see where the traffic's. It's going to take me a while before that traffic's cleared, mate.
One side of the road is clear, but Paul can't land until both carriageways are free of traffic. Drivers passing the crash site are slowing down to see what's going on, unaware that up in the air there is a helicopter waiting to land to take a critically ill patient to hospital.
Stop breathing.
Has he?
Yeah. You got a bag and mask? Bag and mask?
Yeah.
The worst has happened. Atif has stopped breathing.
We just happened to look across at the patient just before we lifted him up, and I noticed that his chest had stopped rising. Thankfully at that stage the doctor was at the head end with a bag and mask, and we managed to what we call bag him, use the bag and mask on the patient to get him breathing again.
Start again.
We're going to need to tube him, aren't we?
Unfortunately, one of the side effects of serious head injuries is potentially a respiratory arrest, is what Latif had.
As the last car slowly passes the crash, the driver is unaware that in his rearview mirror, the vehicle behind him is a £2 million air ambulance. This is potentially dangerous. The motorway wasn't designed with helicopters in mind, and even with the road clear, Paul needs to keep the rotor blades well away from the lampposts. He manoeuvres Helimed 99 as close to the central reservation as possible, and he's down.
It was taking an inordinate amount of time for the traffic to filter through the instant location, so I was having to wait for that.
The crew need to get Atif on his way as quickly as possible now.
It's a very good example of how all the emergency services, you've got the police, the fire, the ambulance, the air ambulance, you've got a doctor that was off duty, all working together for Atif's best interest.
Lead General, is it?
Lead General Infirm.
Cheers, like.
Do you want to just guide it across?
Miles above the height of the barrier.
With Atif finally on board, Paul the pilot manoeuvres the helicopter safely away from the lampposts, and Helimed 99 is on its way.
Those 10 minutes, could have been the difference between life and death for Atif. Had we not been able to close the motorway, then we wouldn't have been able to take him. He's made a fantastic recovery. We like to check up on people and how they've gone on after a serious incident, and again, this is another good example of how the air ambulance benefits people with serious injuries, taking them to a definitive centre.
Coming up on Helicopter Heroes, will injured jockey Kate Bosanquet ever be fit enough to return to the job that almost killed her?
Now, my last job wasn't exactly safe, but at least I knew the risks when I signed up as a copper. Helimed 99's paramedics are used to treating patients who have injured themselves at work, and few know the risks quite as well as Darren X.
At the only Yorkshire coal mine preserved as a museum, there are some unusual visitors today.
There's a bucket there, Darren.
Hang on a minute.
Darren Axe, who did 12 years down the pit before becoming a paramedic, is about to give workmates Paul Bradbury and Pete Vallance a taste of life underground.
Right, James, put your contraband in there.
Left school in 1981 and went straight to Frickley Colliery as an apprentice. It was a natural thing to do. There were 3 generations of my family working in that place, so it just seemed like, I just followed what they did and that was it.
Right, Brian's going to give you one of these each. A brass check, this is what we call a checking system.
Their jobs aren't exactly safe, but mining used to be the UK's #1 killer of men. And the crew of the air ambulance spend a lot of their time dealing with the victims of accidents at work.
But you're working with machinery and you're working in an environment that if you don't respect it and watch what you're doing, it'll definitely kill you or injure you badly. Anything from a set of step ladders to an electric drill. They'll do something, or they'll use it in the wrong way, or they'll just not respect that piece of equipment, and then it'll turn around and bite them. And sometimes, the consequences are quite devastating.
And Darren knows at first hand how serious some industrial injuries can be. In a farmyard workshop, there's been a nasty accident. A man restoring an old van has been injured by the power tool he was using.
It's been done by an angle grinder. Right. We think 500 ml to a litre of blood loss.
When he's been grinding off that, it's hit a bump and it shot off straight into the back of his leg.
What's the field? It's got something in there.
2, 3, lift,
and
right wheel.
The patient has lost a lot of blood and he needs emergency surgery. The tourniquet that's been stopping the bleeding can only remain in place for a short time, and the clock is ticking, which is where Helimed 99 comes in.
Feel a bit of a fraud because I don't feel that bad.
No, we'll get him in first.
I'm going to give you a touch of the old magic wind, my old China.
Never had it.
Well, it's nice stuff. Trouble is they make us collect it from mountain tops. It's good mountain air in a bottle.
Doing a marvellous job. Ambulance crew, spot on. Deserve a massive pay rise and twice as much holiday as what they get.
But behind the jokes is a real sense of urgency. This injury could easily have been fatal.
It was my own fault. Stupidity. The grinder slipped out my hands and caught my leg.
He's alright. He's lost a significant amount of blood, really. He's tried to sort of hobble out of the place, and there's blood everywhere. It looked like a scene from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre in his garage. Because they don't wait and say sorry to the grinders, they just carry on doing what they do. I'm a grinder, here I come. So, yeah, you've had better days, haven't you, mate? Yeah.
Not only will the surgeons at the Leeds General Infirmary have to stop the bleeding, they'll also have to check for any nerve damage, and there's a serious risk of infection. Luckily, surgery was successful and Mick's now back at work with a new respect for power tools. "500 feet down, this is where Darren began his medical career as a member of the underground rescue team, and the dangers of the coal industry kept him in work.
My first day underground as a trainee, a poor chap was stood in this area breaking up a large lump of rock, and the machine started and just cut him to pieces.
But there's another industry that still keeps the air ambulance busy today.
When you get up north, we've got a lot of farming, a lot of agricultural workers, and they use a lot of the same sort of machinery that you get in heavy industry. Plus, there's always animals that they're dealing with as well that can be very unpredictable. So we deal with a lot of agricultural stroke farmyard type accidents.
On an isolated farm high in the hills of North Yorkshire, a farmer's been hurt. But today, paramedic Paul Bradbury is rather more worried about his own safety.
The first thing that's going through my mind is where's the bull?
Farmer Andrew Holgate has been attacked by his prize bull Barry at the remote family farm high in the Pennines.
This is when you need smell-o-vision.
Yeah. I'm out. How are you doing?
He's been crushed and could have serious internal injuries.
Quite a bit of bruising there.
Yeah.
It's literally put him against the wall and then thrown him out.
Right.
That's right.
Do you move everything all right? No pins and needles? No. Other than this part of your thigh? Yeah. You're not hurting anywhere else? No.
Got himself out and actually stood up, and then there was somebody working up there who'd heard him, and Edward had said Daddy's lying down in the straw, which was not like Daddy to lie down in the straw, so then we all came out. And he insisted he would be all right and just needed a bit of rest just to lie down. But we decided to call. If he hadn't have been thrown out, it would have killed him.
It's the first time the farmer has been laid up by his own livestock.
No, Vector's like, no. Hopefully never again as well.
Farming's one of the UK's most dangerous occupations, especially in remote areas. But this farmer's flight to hospital will only take a few minutes.
Don't worry, if we drop you in right place.
Only a scan will reveal the extent of Farmer Andrew's injuries, but the bull's name betrays its fearsome reputation.
He's got a nickname for the bull. It's Barry the bar steward, I think. I think he thinks it's bar steward.
Nobody gonna sing I.O.
But Paul knows even the most modern working environments can have accidents. In a warehouse in North Yorkshire, a pallet has fallen off a forklift truck. One storeman's already on his way to hospital by road, and another has a badly broken ankle. Helimed 99 is dropping into the factory yard.
Do you think you can land on the concrete then?
We can do, yeah.
Oh, well. This one is in the left-hand side of that concrete post and some packaging.
We're looking at red top packaging. Yeah, I don't know if it's something that's tied onto a pallet.
Pilot Steve Cobb prides himself on getting into some tight spots.
The tailframe of this.
It's been a squeeze, but they're down.
This gentleman has got a complicated fracture of his right ankle.
Right, okay.
Moving his toes.
Paramedics Paul and Simon have been called in because they carry strong painkillers.
Brunt force of it, basically. There was actually bags on top of him up to his chest.
Right.
The warehouse's first aiders have done the right thing and left him where he fell.
Nervous about needles, aren't you? Yeah. Oh well, don't look. Just relax your arm.
There's no pulse in the patient's lower leg, and that means he's in danger of losing his foot. Each minute that passes without proper blood flow increases the risk.
I was looking at what's hit him. Obviously, we all suspect a spinal and back injury, so we're going to start immobilising his spine in a minute. Obviously, the position is at the moment we can't get a collar around his neck. He's not moving anywhere, so we'll give him some pain relief on board, and then we'll start to stabilise him a little bit more. As you can see from his ankle, it's quite a nasty fractured ankle. We need to ascertain whether he's got any blood passing that, whether he's got a pulse. They've tried to get a pulse initially and they can't get one, so what we're going to do is put a little bit of traction on that once the pain release kicked in, and then we'll try and manipulate it around a little bit, but whichever way we're doing it, it's going to be painful, so we'll try and load him up with as much pain relief as we can to start off with. If it's too painful, Eddie, put your arm up in there and we'll stop. Alright.
The painkillers have done their job, and in seconds his leg is straight.
That's the worst bit over with.
The storeman's now ready for his flight to the hospital in Harrogate.
If the pain gets any worse, should give Simon a prod in the ribs, and it'll give you something else.
X-rays will reveal that his broken ankle was his only injury.
I've got the team at Harrogate waiting for him, so yeah, shouldn't be too long now.
But first, Helimed 99's pilot Steve has to reverse out of his tight parking spot in the factory yard.
Just watch out for any debris, boys.
The break was bad, but their patient is slowly recovering. Meanwhile, the crew of Helimed 99 are coming up for air after an hour underground, and paramedic Darren has no plans to go back to his first job.
It was a different type of, camaraderie. Everybody watched each other's back. Everybody washed each other's back.
Checks, please.
How many men could you trust to do that these days? I don't think there's that many. I enjoy what I do now. It's a great job. I've gone from 2,000 feet underground to 2,000 feet in the air. I don't think I want to go back in the other direction, really.
And I'm pleased to say that all 3 accident victims are now back at work. But up in North Yorkshire, another group of workmates are waiting to hear news of an injured colleague.
Helimed 99 answered an early morning call to the stables belonging to one of the country's most famous racing trainers, Mick Easterby. One of his top riders, Kate Bosanquet, has come off on the gallops. She has stopped breathing.
But I head back and give her mouth to mouth.
One of her jockey colleagues, Oliver, knew what to do. He gave her the kiss of life and brought her back. After her early morning fall, Kate spent the next few days in a coma. Her brain was taking time out, but she was recovering. Oliver is turning into work to exercise the horses as normal. The first aid training he learnt at school undoubtedly saved Kate's life.
She just looked terrible, basically. Her eyes were closed because she wasn't breathing or responding or anything. Her tongue was out, so I put that in. And then, just started doing CPR, basically. And then, amazingly, she started breathing. It was amazing.
I can't imagine what was going through his mind. I've never had to actually witness an incident and then start dealing with it. Fortunately, I come along at some stage and get stuck in with the training that I've had. This young man stood up to the plate and got stuck in straight away with the best knowledge that he had.
I knew that it can be done, do you know what I mean? The body is quite robust and it's like an engine, do you know what I mean? It will just get going again. And she was going, I was just, I was almost in tears. I was so happy, do you know what I mean? Because I almost thought she was dead, do you know what I mean, when I saw her, and then, yeah. It took me a long time to get over it, really. At the time it felt okay, but every night it kept going through my head that what happened, you know.
And there's good news. After 3 weeks in hospital, Kate is up and about. Physically, she's much better, but she's having to relearn simple things like making a bacon sandwich. But it's a long road to recovery yet.
The first couple of days I was out of it anyway, and they just sedated me and kept me quiet. And then when I woke up, probably the first 3 or 4 days, I was very, very sore, and I just slept mainly and ate, and that was it.
All done?
All done, yeah.
She's making astonishing progress, from a coma to intensive care and now rehab. In a few weeks' time, back home. And today's the day. Back at Mick Easterby's racing stables, there's a few friends delighted to see Kate back. And so's the boss.
Hey, the Mickers. She's a lovely girl. She's a lovely girl.
But there's one special mate she wants to meet up with.
All right.
Hi, Ollie, all right?
Yes, yes.
So how do you say thank you to the guy who saved your life? It's an awkward moment, but Kate manages to find the words.
But when they told me that Oliver had given me mouth to mouth and turned me over onto my side and looked after me, I was just amazed. He was just brilliant. I just really wanted to thank him so much. He's a very, very genuine person who seems to be able to deal with situations absolutely brilliantly. So I was very lucky that he was there that day. I mean, this is definitely a life-changing experience, and the case of that was very near death. And the helicopter lands on top of the LGI, which is an 8th-floor building, and I was on the 7th floor. And I was there for just over 2 weeks, but I think getting there so quickly made a huge difference.
My best guess in why she'd stopped breathing was either initially a head injury or the fact that she perhaps had mud in her mouth that needed clearing, and she really only has minutes to live.
I just feel like I do owe him my life, you know, big time. And, you know, I'm sure we'll stay friends forever.